and welcome back to Your Story is Your Portal. And today we are going to be talking about my favorite subject, which is books, and sharing your story in a book. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about the need to be validated by winning a honor, a tag, a title, such as New York Times Bestseller. This is something that I am asked all the time. And so I thought I would record an episode today and talk about the elephant in the room. What does it mean to be a New York Times bestseller? What is the reason for wanting to be a New York Times bestseller or wanting to be a bestseller of some description? And why the whole publishing industry has shaped itself around this ecosystem of being a New York Times bestseller. And when I say ecosystem, I really mean that we have evolved into this situation where instead of stories being about authentically sharing your knowledge for the benefit of other people, it's come about, it's more about being validated as a successful author, to be validated by a label such as New York Times bestseller. And it's become so important. It's almost as though your success as an author is dependent on having a title like this. It's quite frustrating as an author and as a publisher to hear this question all the time. What do I need to do to be a New York Times bestseller? And I'm always asking, why do you want to be a New York Times bestseller? It's as though the illusion of success is dependent on winning this title. And the reality is that, a New York Times bestseller is created by the New York Times, which is a newspaper, and it is a curated title. So it comes from mostly adding up book sales in New York and a secret combination of bookstores and some other platforms to decide whether the number of sales equals you being the best. And the thing is, it's not about being the best in terms of the most or the most quantity. A bestseller is not about how many books you have sold, but how it is curated and who it's been curated by. And so it is created by publishers. Publishers mostly buy themselves into that system. Public relations and marketing companies make a whole ecosystem and industry around selling this concept of being a New York Times bestseller. Unfortunately, it isn't based on the success of the book or how many books you've sold. It really is more about being in the right place at the right time and selected by who you know, as rather than what you know. So that's why I always feel kind of sad when an author is has the illusion that in order to be successful, they must have the label of a New York Times bestseller. And it's sad. I feel that the industry is turned into this industry of validation, where if you're not validated by having a title like this, then you are not successful. And authors are chasing this illusion of success, chasing this label of New York Times bestseller or bestseller, national bestseller. They're chasing an illusion. I mean, it really is, instead of a book being successful because it has helped many people or it has been of service to many people, it is validated by this title. And so I really wanted to talk about it in this podcast episode, and talk about, what does it mean to be a successful author? What does it mean to have a successful book? And, from my perspective, and I remember the very first person that I published, that would have been, oh gosh, actually 15 years ago now. And it was Dr. Jerry Thuster. And he wrote a book called Don't Let Your Kids Be Normal. And that book had so much impact in the world when it was published. It helped parents to really understand the importance of letting your children be individuals, and not trying to make them fit into a box by being normal. And I remember saying to Jerry, what would you need to feel like your book has had a real impact in the world? And he said to me, Julie, if I have one parent call me or leave a comment and say that my book has changed the way that they're going to parent that child, that means I have influenced that child's life. That's success. As far as I'm concerned, that is success. Not chasing a label, not chasing a status, but that you have deeply influenced one person with your information and you have changed their life. And so I really wanted to talk about this in this episode and really speak about this whole ecosystem about being validated and how it appears to be so important to so many new authors that they literally chase this dream. They chase the dream. They decide who's going to publish their book, who's going to edit their book, who's going to market their book, chasing testimonials, chasing the dream of success, rather than thinking of their book as an important platform that is going to influence and help other people. I would love people to think about their story as the key to helping and being a portal to assist other people, whether it's because you've been through the cancer journey, for example, and your knowledge about diet and other ways that you can overcome cancer, for example, will help the next person who gets cancer and they are seeking information. Where can I go to get the solutions? That is success, when your book can have an impact on other people as far as I'm concerned, that's success. It's not being validated by a title. So why is it that people, why do humans have to be validated? Like, why is it that unless you win a title like this, that you cannot consider yourself successful? Because it seems like human beings have to be validated by other people. So when can we get to a point where you choose to want to write a book and to publish a book, not to be chosen by somebody, not to be validated by being chosen as a best-selling author, a New York Times best-selling author, or to be chosen because you've won a competition, for example. So I probably get at least once a month 4 or 5 authors that come to me. They have put all of their energy into a competition. They've spent money on conferences so that they're in the right place at the right time to be noticed by somebody. They have put their book on hold to adapt their voice to what is required by this competition. Instead of allowing their voice to be their genuine, authentic voice, using their genuine, authentic knowledge, they have chosen to chase the dream of being a Random House best-selling author, or being chosen by a particular brand name that they consider to represent them having the status in the industry, like Hay House, for example. Louise Hayes has worked so hard with her company to give it the validation of, if you are published by Louise Hay and Hay House, that means that, your spirituality has been validated by being published by this name. Of course, that is, that's the way it used to be. And now, Hay House doesn't have Louise Hay, and it's run by, a different CEO who is in partnership with the self-publishing monopoly. But at the same time, people are hooked in by that opportunity to be recognized, to win, to put energy into having that label, winning that contract, so that they are validated, so that their wisdom or knowledge is validated by having this title. So what if instead of chasing the voice, the information that has to be created in a certain way to win that competition, what if the author really focuses on choosing their own voice, choosing themselves, presenting to the world their authentic knowledge, their authentic wisdom in their voice, instead of trying to adapt that voice to suit a set of rules or regulations that means you will win a publishing contract from this particular name, or that you will be validated by a title such as New York Times bestseller. So instead of chasing that dream, what if the author wanted to authentically present their story as a portal to help other people? That story becomes medicine, that story becomes medicine for the author as well. The journey to write a book is also medicine for the author, as well as being medicine for the readers, that they can help with their knowledge, with their wisdom, with their experience. Instead of chasing a dream to create something in a certain way, in a certain voice, to qualify for this title. So I really wanted to talk about this topic because I had been asked by a few different people, what will you do as a publisher to help me become a New York Times bestseller? And I answered this question so many times. I thought, well, let's do a podcast interview about it, and let's talk about that elephant in the room, and let's talk about why authors need to be validated. They need their story, their book, to be validated by this title. And why is it so important? Now, I don't think it is, I don't think it's about even being seen by people that need your book. It's more about having this title, which means you will be seen by somebody who is going to answer everything and change your life overnight. So, this person who sees this title is going to make you rich and famous overnight, and therefore your life will completely change. So, it's, instead of it being about helping other people, it becomes about what do you have to do in order to have your success validated with one of these titles. So I would love if people would think of their book as an opportunity to share transformation, an opportunity to embody your message, to authentically bring your story, your wisdom, your knowledge to the world. And that success is, as Jerry said, success is that one person that their life has been changed by your knowledge. And that is success. If an author can get to that place where they consider themselves or their story successful because it's impacted another person, or impacted many other people, then that, from my perspective, is a successful author. One that has put their time, their energy, their wisdom, their story into a book that will help other people. And that is the label of success, is that you have helped other people as opposed to winning a title. And, I have spoken to people about the importance of being a best-selling author. And so I don't want people to misunderstand that I'm not saying that, you should have a status like best-selling author, and at the cost of your ego, right? I have told authors many times how important it is for example, to launch their book as an Amazon bestseller. Now, the reason I say that is not for validation. It's not to have a label as a best-selling author. It is so that your book can be found by the people that need your knowledge. For the same reason, when I talk to authors about the title of their book, I tell them how important it is to allow the reader to find your information. So, instead of it being about, a creative, clever title, it's about helping the reader that needs your information by a choice of title and subtitle and design that helps the reader find you. So I often say to people, who do you want to help? Why are you writing a book, and who do you want to help by sharing your story? Now, let's just go back to the very simple cancer question, for example. If somebody says to me, I want to share my story because I want to help other women that don't want to, they don't want chemotherapy. They want to understand how can they embody practices that will help fight cancer, whether it be with diet, for example. I have come across so many authors talking about their cancer journey that now I am pretty convinced that anybody can cure their cancer. Now, I'm not giving medical advice here. I'm just saying that based on the number of people that have shared their cancer journey by sharing their story in a book, it would indicate to me that there are many, many things that people can do to help themselves if they get a diagnosis of cancer. And that's not just mindset, which of course is extremely important, but it's understanding, for example, that cancer cannot live in an acidic body, that in some countries, cancer doesn't even exist because of their diet means that cancer cannot live in a body that has a certain diet. If your body is very acidic because of your diet, then cancer can grow in that environment, versus if you have a very alkaline body because of your diet, cancer cannot grow in that type of body. And so, this type of information by one author publishing a book about this topic, if you had a title such as, let's say, for example, My Yellow Curtains, right? And, maybe the author wants to say that because it was her yellow curtains that every day she woke up and they made her feel happy. And because of her disposition, that was a very good title for her book. And I would say, okay, but who is going to find your book if it's called My Yellow Curtains? Now, I know that it's important to you, but how is somebody who has just had a diagnosis of cancer and wants to know what do I need to eat, or how can I change my diet to help my cancer diagnosis? So if you had a book and the title was How Cancer Cannot Survive in an Alkaline Body, or something like did you know cancer cannot survive in an alkaline body? Or change your diet, cure your cancer. Any of these types of titles tells the reader who is looking for that information what the book is about. And if they put in Google or ChatGPT and they're searching for that book, there's going to be a good chance that if your book has got the word cancer in the title, then it's going to be found. However, this is where the bestseller part comes in. Amazon is the world's largest book retailer. Now, a lot of people misunderstand what Amazon is. It is a retailer. It's just like a bookstore, but it's online. And obviously, this is like a very large department store that sells many other things other than books. But if you Google, how can I help cure my cancer with my diet, then Google is going to go out, and one of the first resources that it goes to is Amazon. Now, Amazon literally has billions of titles. I mean, did you ever wonder when you open up your Amazon page that you only ever see the best-selling authors and the same names pop up all the time? Brené Brown, Greg Braden, Donald Walsh. It's the same people that keep popping up all the time. You don't see, the top 100 with 100 strange names that you've never heard of before. So why is that? It's because of the bestseller status. So this is where being a best-selling author on Amazon has a huge impact to help the reader find your book. If you are an Amazon bestseller, even if you are an Amazon bestseller just for one day, because your book has made it into the top 100 in the category of health, cancer, now your book is going to be found. If your book did not make it into the top 100 in the category of health, cancer, your book will not be found. It's very black and white, and it's very simple because Amazon has billions of books. So how do they sort out which books are going to be found by search engines? And this is how they do it, by only including those titles that are in the top 100 in a particular category, which is the category that's being searched by the reader on Google or ChatGPT. So can you see now why it's so important to be an Amazon bestseller, for example? Okay. It's not about ego. It's not about validation, although for some people it is. But from my perspective as a publisher, I tell people being an Amazon bestseller is essential so that your book will be found by the people that need your book. And that is why you need to be a bestseller. Being a New York Times bestseller doesn't actually help. It is only a label that validates you as successful. It is only a label that means that maybe you'll be discovered because your name for one day is in the top 10 list on the New York Times newspaper, right? So it literally is a status label, and it doesn't really represent anything other than it has this reputation that goes with it. So this is why I tell my authors, yes, it is very important to launch your book as an Amazon bestseller. It is also very important for the reader to be able to find your book, because you choose a title that can be found. You choose a title and a subtitle that actually reflects the content of the book. I ask my authors to please put yourself in the position of the person that you're going to help with your book. And please think about if you were looking for your information yourself 10 years ago, what are the words that you would be putting in Google to find your book? And those are the words that you need to make sure are in the title, the subtitle, the synopsis, the description of the book, because otherwise, how is anybody ever going to find your book? The people that need your book will only find it if you describe it. It's a little bit like saying, if you wanted to buy, let's say, a beautiful necklace, and that beautiful necklace was presented in a box, but with no window in the box, no picture on the box, no description on the box. How would you know that it's a beautiful diamond necklace? Why would a book be any different? If you want to buy a book and it has information, for example, about emotionally abusive relationships, unless it says somewhere on the outside packaging that inside is the gold, the story, the secret to find out if you're in an emotionally abusive relationship. If it doesn't say that on the outside of the box, how do you know what's inside the box? So it's so important to make sure that the packaging, which is the book, that is the only way that anybody would ever know what's inside a book, is the packaging. So I'm going to give you an example here. Just going to reach this book here. This is one of my favorite authors, Deborah Connors. She published this book, I think, probably 7 or 8 years ago. I'm losing track of time now. But you see what the title is: A Better Place to Work. I mean, do we have any misunderstanding what this book is about? A better place to work. Daily practices that transform culture. So obviously this book is about transforming the culture of the workplace to make it a better place to work, right? And then just to re-emphasize with the cover design that we understand what this book is about, it has some of the values in the design of the book. So we have words like respect, shift yourself, bold, trust, contribute, inspiration, flourish. We have all of these words that indicate this is what makes for a better workplace. And then when you turn the book over, you have got a headline that clearly tells the reader what the book is about. It has a description. It has a description of the author, so you know that why she's qualified to be writing about this topic. It has some testimonials to show people that it has been endorsed by experts in the industry and the field. And then it has the categories where it is found on Amazon or where the author would search for this book. So these are the search terms: workplace culture, leadership, and organizational development. And so this book has been very successful because it was an Amazon bestseller in those categories, and it is still being found by people that are looking for advice, not just the reader, but people in the media. So, if, for example, there was and this often happens, a suicide in the workplace, for example, because somebody was very upset about being bullied in their workplace, then, CBC or NBC or, some of the media would say, okay, we need to interview an expert on workplace culture. And they would put in Google, best-selling author, workplace culture, and Deborah's book would turn up, and Deborah would turn up, and she would be interviewed by CBC as an expert on the topic because they can find her. They can find her because she's a best-selling author. They can find her because the title and subtitles of the book say what the book is about. So yes, it is important to be a best-selling author, but only so that people can find you, not so that you are validated with a title like New York Times bestseller, and not so that your success as an author is validated with that title. So I hope that I've left you in this episode with information about why your story is a portal to help other people, and why it's so important to showcase your story in a book that's a best-selling book, because it can be found by the person that needs that information, not because it has a title like New York Times bestseller as purely a validation. So I hope that I've been clear enough about the importance of being a bestseller versus the reason that you are validated with the title of a bestseller. So I have not been doing many episodes on this particular topic of books, but today I thought it was very important to be addressing this and to be talking about why your story is important. Your story needs to be found by people that need your information, and why it's important to be a bestseller so that you can be found versus having the label of a bestseller so that you're validated. So thank you for listening. And remember, your story is your portal. Thank you so much for listening, and come back next week. Thank you. Thank you for walking through today's portal. I invite you to subscribe, share, and join me inside the House of Story Medicine for deeper journeys, book mentorship, and soul story retreats in Mexico. Because your voice matters.
I'm Michelle Abraham, founder of the High Vibe Podcast Network, and we're honored to have Julianne's show, Your Story is Your Portal, as part of our network family. For more inspiring shows like this one, visit highvibepodcastnetwork.com, and don't forget to grab your free gifts from our hosts in the gift vault. Stay high vibe and keep sharing your life.